As a part of today's inspiring segment, we'll be telling you about Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall was born on April 3, 1934 in London. When Goodall was about 2 years old, her mother gave her a stuffed toy chimpanzee, which she still has to this day. That stuffed animal sparked her interest in chimps. When Goodall was growing up, she was a good student, but she had more interest in being outdoors and learning about animals. Once, she spent 5 hours in a hen house so she could see how a hen lays an egg. She loved animals so much that by the time she was 10 or 11, she dreamed of living with animals in Africa. Her mother encouraged Goodall's dream, which eventually became a reality. When Goodall was 18, she completed secondary school and started working. She worked as a secretary, a waitress, an assistant editor in a film studio, trying to save enough money to make her first trip to Africa. Jane finally went to Africa when she was 23 years old. In 1957, she sailed to Mombasa on the East African coast, where she met anthropologist Louis Leakey, who later became her mentor. In Africa, Leakey and his wife Mary discovered what were then the oldest known human remains. These discoveries supported Leakey's claim that the origins of the human species were in Africa, not in East Asia or Europe as many had believed. In July 1960, 26-year-old Jane Goodall set out for the first time for Gombe National Park in southeastern Africa to start a study of the chimpanzees that lived in the forests along the shores of Lake Tanganyika. She had little formal training, but still she brought with her her love of animals, a strong sense of determination, and a desire for adventure. She thought at the time that the study might take 3 years. She ended up staying for more than 2 decades. In her earliest days at Gombe, Goodall worked alone or with native guides. She spent long hours working to gain the trust of the chimpanzees, tracking them through the dense forests and gradually moving closer and closer to the chimps until she could sit with them, a feat that had never been achieved by any other scientist. Her patience produced an amazing set of discoveries about the behaviors and social relations of chimpanzees. Up until then, chimpanzees had been thought to be violent, aggressive animals with crude social arrangements. Researchers had given chimps numbers rather than names and had ignored the differences in personality, intelligence, and social skills that Goodall's studies revealed. Goodall showed that chimpanzees organized themselves in groups that had complex social structures. They were often loving and careful parents and also formed attachments to their peers. They hunted and ate meat, and they used simple tools, twigs or grasses that they stripped off of leaves and used to get termites out of termite mounds. This discovery helped force scientists to give up their definition of human beings as the only animals that used tools. In 1962, Leakey arranged for Goodall to work on a doctorate degree at Cambridge University in England. This would give scientific weight to her discoveries. In 1965, she became the 8th person ever to receive a doctorate from Cambridge University without having earned an undergraduate degree. By 1964, the Gombe Stream Research Center had become the destination of choice for graduate students and other scientists wishing to study chimpanzees or learn Goodall's methods. The general public was also learning about Goodall's work through a series of articles in the National Geographic magazine and later through National Geographic television specials. The 1970s saw changes in Goodall's understanding of the chimpanzees and in the way in which research was carried out at Gombe. In 1974, what Goodall referred to as a war broke out between 2 groups of chimpanzees. One group eventually killed many members of the other group. These appearances of the darker side of chimpanzee behavior forced her to adjust her interpretation of these animals as being basically gentle and peace-loving. Later, Goodall turned her attention to the problem of captive chimpanzees. Because they closely resemble humans, chimpanzees have been widely used as laboratory animals to study human diseases. Goodall used her knowledge and fame to work to set limits on the number of animals used in such experiments and to convince researchers to improve the conditions under which the animals were kept. She also worked to improve conditions for zoo animals and for conservation of chimpanzee habitats. In 1986, she helped found the Committee for the Conservation and Care of Chimpanzees, an organization dedicated to these issues. She has even written children's books. For her efforts, Goodall has received many awards and honors, among them the Gold Medal of Conservation from the San Diego Zoological Society, the J. Paul Getty Wildlife Conservation Prize, and the National Geographic Society Centennial Award. In the year 2000, she accepted the third Gandhi King Award for Nonviolence at the United Nations. Much of Goodall's current work is carried on by the Jane Goodall Institute for Wildlife Research, Education, and Conservation. Goodall doesn't spend much time in Africa anymore, but she gives speeches throughout the world and spends as many as 300 days a year traveling. We hope you've enjoyed this inspiring segment. For Girl TV, I'm Charlotte. Bye.